Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today's the 28th of June, 2021. Right, everyone, let's get into the news from the weekend. So, I put out this tweet over the weekend because I was getting a lot of questions from people, and they were asking me, like, how can I, get involved with the crypto ecosystem? I don't want to kind of go full time, but I want to do kind of like part time things or just be like a casual kind of contributor. So, I put together this tweet where I said that there are many ways to provide value to the crypto ecosystem. You can join a community or a DAO. So, I've said this, multiple times on the refill before, where you can literally just go join a community Discord channel and just start talking to people and just start kind of like providing value that way. Whether you're basically providing, I wouldn't call it customer support, but you're just helping people out. If you know the project really well, you just helping them out in the Discord, getting to know people. I mean, really, it's just joining any community. And of course, a lot of these communities are DAOs as well. And joining the DAO, can come in many different forms. You can just start contributing to the project, and the DAO can pay you in rewards, like in token rewards, something like that. I've spoken about how the Index Co-op does that a lot in the past, but like pretty much like so many different projects do that these days. If you're looking for something, a DAO to work for, there's definitely lots out there. And secondly, it's if you're a developer, you can contribute to open source software. So basically, all open source software allows people to contribute to it. Not to say that your contribution is going to be like accepted into the canonical kind of software here, where it's basically part of the main fork, but you can still kind of like use it, add to it, try and fix things, maybe find kind of like bugs in the code, or try to refactor it or make it more efficient and things like that. So if you're a developer, you can do that with anything, literally any open source project that you want. You can go take a look at that. A lot of the code's on GitHub. Even if you're just like a casual security researcher and you're just looking at different crypto projects and you find a bug, you can report that to the team and basically fix that for them. Or you can submit a pull request on GitHub and basically say, hey, I found this bug, here's the fix, here you go. That's another really good way. You can help onboard other developers. If you are a developer yourself, or if you are an educator, you direct people to the kind of right resources. And I think one of the best places is the ethereum.org developer section, as I've mentioned in the past, because that actually has links to all the other resources out there to learn Ethereum development in particular. So that's another thing. Creating educational content, like exactly what I do, I guess, at the Daily Gwei and ETH Hub. Just making sure that people get educated about these sorts of things and about DeFi and DAOs and Ethereum and crypto in general. There's plenty of kind of I guess people doing this already, like DeFi Dad, Findmatics, Bankless, the Defiant. There's so many out there. I saw Crypto Testers is doing something as well. There's plenty out there, but that doesn't mean that there isn't room for more, because at the end of the day, everyone learns differently, and my style might be different to someone else's style, who's different to someone else, and people want to learn from people that they trust and actually like enjoy learning from. So if you are someone, and no one person can cover everything, right? Like I don't have the time to write guides for everything, whereas other people might. Like you can write a guide for whatever. Like if it's a new app out there and people are wondering, okay, how do I use this app? Like, what is this? I don't understand it. You can just write like a blog post on it and basically say, okay, well, here's like explain like I'm five. Here's how you use it. Here's how to take advantage of it. And those things can go really far. That's, the way I built my Twitter following initially was that I just started doing educational tweet threads. It wasn't even blog posts. It was just tweet threads. And then, people started following me because I was providing them value through that educational stuff. So I think that's definitely what people should focus on if they want to grow a Twitter following. But also, even if you just want to kind of like, help people and educate them, you can do stuff like that. And on top of that, I guess a related thing is you can translate other people's content as well. So if you speak any other language other than English, then and you speak English as well, and then you have a pretty good leg up here, because you can take all that English content and start translating it. I have two groups that are translating the Daily Gwei newsletter into, one's translating into Spanish, the other one into French. So I have the Spanish and French communities, the ones that don't speak English, reading my work. And obviously I don't speak French, or maybe that's not so obvious to you. I only speak English, and I can understand a little bit of Italian because my background's Italian, but I definitely can't speak any other languages. So, translating that content for these people who don't speak English is a huge boon, because there are plenty of people in the world who don't speak English, and there are plenty of people out there who are missing out on all this good content that is just in English. And, they might read it because they have Google Translate and things, but things definitely get lost in translation. So, translating other people's content, and then just like asking them for permission to post it into your own community. Say you have like a community that you're, you say you're in like the Greek community, for example, and you want to translate it, and kind of I guess push it out to that community, well, then you can. I would ask permission though from the content creator first before doing so, but generally, they're all okay with it. Like, I'm definitely okay with it. On that note, if anyone from communities other than the French and Spanish communities wants to translate the Daily Way newsletter into other languages, definitely hit me up on Twitter or Discord DM. I'd be keen to chat to you. And then I just kind of finish with, there's like much more you can do, obviously, but also like, what are you waiting for, right? I think I've discussed this in the past on the Refuel, where especially when the prices were coming down of like ETH and all that sort of stuff, and when I was saying, there are things you can do when the market's quiet where you can add like a ton of value that is just generally harder to do while the market's hot. And I think all of these are kind of those things you can do while the market's quiet. You can do it while the market's hot as well, but while things are quiet, it's just much easier to break into different communities. It's much easier to get your name out there. I mean, as I said, like, I grew my Twitter following by doing educational threads, but I did that through 2018 and 2019 when it was like basically a pure bear market. Most people were gone. There was the engagement was like 99% less than what it is today. But I kept grinding through it and got through to where I am now. But that's the same thing that can happen now. And I'm not saying we're going to go into a 2-year bear market, but when things are quiet, it's just a much better thing to do, because the people that are sticking around, the ones that are actually in it for the tech, actually care about what you have to say, aren't just like speculators who are just here for the pump, so to speak. So yeah, start now if this is you. If you're looking for something to do, I know for a lot of the world it's summer right now, so maybe you're not going to be spending too much time indoors. You're going to be outside a lot. That's fine. I mean, maybe take your laptop or your tablet or something and go create some content, while you're outdoors or whatever. But for me, in little old Melbourne down here, where it's still in winter, so I'm trying to just catch up on a lot of the backlog that I have, especially because the market's quiet. But anyway, I'll leave it at that. I'll leave it up to you all to do that. If you need help and I guess like suggestions or anything, or like feedback on any of ideas you have, again, hit me up. I'm happy to help you along with that. So I kind of saw this tweet from Greg Eisenberg here, I think on Friday, where he said, Gutenberg launched the printing press when 96% of the people in Europe were illiterate. That's how it feels to be building in Web3 crypto today. It's just early. This really, I mean, as I quote tweeted here, this messed me up. Like, I didn't know this at all. I knew about Gutenberg and the printing press, obviously, but I didn't know that 96% of people in Europe were illiterate, which basically means 96% of people in Europe had no use for the printing press at that point in time. Obviously, later on they did, because they became more literate, and I'm sure the printing press had a very big part to play in that. But that's exactly how it feels within crypto today, right? Like, a lot of people like to complain about Ethereum and DeFi and the interfaces being all clunky and the UI UX being clunky and all that sort of stuff. And it's like, well, for one, yes, okay, to an extent they are, but I think a lot of them are actually pretty good. And two, there's just a lot of new language that people have to learn. I don't think we should be dumbing down the language to a point where we're basically taking away from the fact that there are a lot of things that are unique to the crypto ecosystem. And if people need to learn a few new words, then they should. I mean, there are so many new terms that people had to use when they kind of started using started using computers or started using the internet. And, no one, yes, we probably tried to dumb it down and try to make it simpler, but there are lots of things that people just didn't, like a lot of terms people didn't use. Like, think of even back in like the early days, like floppy disk, right? Like that wasn't something that was in the English lexicon until computers came along. And people were like, oh, okay, that's a floppy disk, and like everyone used it, like fax machine, right? Or I guess an inkjet printer or something. Like, all those kind of terms. I mean, there's so many terms. I'm not going to go through all of them. Even Google, right? Like, people describe searching for something as, oh, I'll Google it. Like, that definitely wasn't part of the people's vocabulary until like the I guess like early 2000s or even the late 2000s. So just kind of taking that as an early example here, I think the fact that you could say most people are illiterate when it comes to crypto and DeFi because they haven't used it, they don't know the lingo, they don't know the terminology. It's just because we're early. That's all it is. And I've said this time and time again. It may not feel like it because the markets get ahead of themselves, but we are so stupidly early in this industry. It just blows my mind how early we are, given the fact that the markets are still, so hot. And I've attributed this before to the fact that most of crypto to most people, or I guess like all of crypto to most people, is literally just trading coins on an exchange, on a centralized exchange, mind you. And this kind of like, I guess, a mini bull run we had during April and May, where it got kind of heated. We did see people branch out and use Uniswap to trade dog coins and things like that. But it was still the same concept where these people were just here to speculate. They were just here for the pump, and they immediately left. Like pretty much all of those people are gone now because the markets came down and they're not interested anymore. So from that point of view, there's very little people who actually use the apps day to day and actually get value out of them. But that will change over time. There'll be more and more people that come in. It's just a slow process at the start, but then you get like kind of that exponential growth where you see this on pretty much every chart of new technology. It starts off slow, and then it obviously grows over time, and then you have like a point where it just hits kind of an inflection point and it goes exponential. And as humans, we find it hard to grasp exponential growth, but if you think about it, it makes a lot of sense and it's very, very powerful. So yeah, I mean, this I was like the whole weekend I was thinking about this, and I actually didn't have time to, but I want to go and do more research on like more history around these sorts of things, because I think there's a lot from history that we can learn about in terms of like, I guess, the adoption of what the adoption of crypto is going to look like. And there was actually a really good podcast on Bankless where they had someone on that was talking about all this sort of stuff and talking about the history of basically, I mean, I'm talking history, like not the internet, but like much further back than that. I'm talking like the early, I can't remember exactly the eras of it, but basically during like the Roman Empire and things like that. So they were talking about that and how like a lot of crypto today and a lot of like the internet culture and crypto culture is very similar to culture back then. So I highly recommend going and giving that a listen. You can find it on Bankless. But yeah, generally, I just think that if you look at this space through a lens that we're just really early and you ignore the markets, you can have like a better grasp of where we're at in the adoption cycle. But yeah, I'll leave it at that for now. So Infura, I missed this actually the other day. I think this on Friday, or maybe it was, and I missed this till today. But Infura announced that they are supporting Optimism. So I mean, I've talked about how all these infrastructure providers are going to be supporting layer 2s, and I expect this to continue. And this is just another one that Optimism needed to be live and needed to have support before they could go live on mainnet. And as I've said before on the Refuel, the reason why their launch was delayed is because this key infrastructure was missing. And now they have this key infrastructure, so I'm pretty sure Optimism is going to launch their public mainnet in July, and I'm pretty sure Arbitrum is going to do the same thing, which is going to be fun. It's going to be I think July is going to be a fun month, because then we're going to also have the EIP 1559 a date set very soon, I think, for late July or early August. But I really like, not even just July, like July, August, September seems like it's going to be a very fun time in the Ethereum ecosystem. Especially if the market heats up again. I mean, everyone, as I said, people, like most of the world's in summer right now, they're enjoying the outdoors, but once, I guess, like kind of the colder months start hitting again, people are going to be back indoors and there's going to be a lot more activity happening. So I'm excited to see what happens there. But another thing that I noticed in the blog post was that Infura says, we are now live with support for the Optimism Layer 2 scaling solution in time for the Optimism launch on Uniswap. So I think they're meant to say like Uniswap launch on Optimism here instead of this, unless they're talking about a token, which would be even an even bigger alpha leak. But yeah, this is funny because like I think, as I said, July, but I think like maybe the first half of July, we're going to see Uniswap on both Arbitrum and Optimism, which is going to be crazy, because who's going to win? Like I'm not saying it's a zero-sum game, but which kind of roll up is going to get the most liquidity with Uniswap, which is going to get the most users. And I really do think it comes down to, I guess, support from like centralized exchanges and also support from different bridging solutions. Now, as I mentioned in the past, Arbitrum already has support from OKX. Optimism has support from Coinbase, but not on their core product, just in their mobile wallet app. So if they announce support, it'll be just like a battle between kind of onboarding users via that, and obviously via layer 1 as well. So it's going to be a very interesting battle there. But as I said, the next 3 months in general is just going to be huge. I mean, even going beyond July and going to August, you have ZK Syncs. Wait, no, I think ZK Sync might be late August or early September. They're EVM compatible ZK rollout mainnet. But you also have Starkware. They're going live with their Starknet mainnet in August, I believe. So yeah, I mean, there's so much stuff happening there, and then you have like just the other layer 2s continuing on. Like I guess like I can kind of talk about this now. Polygon is have been teasing a lot of layer 2 stuff that they've been working on. They're saying stay tuned here in this new teaser video about what they've got coming. I'm sure they've been working like diligently in the background on roll-ups and on other kind of solutions here. So yeah, I mean, last, I guess, year we got DeFi summer. Maybe this year we get layer 2 summer. I know people have been pushing that for a little bit. I don't know if it's going to coincide exactly with summer, at least Northern Hemisphere summer. Maybe it happens in my summer at the end of the year. But still, it's a very, very exciting time for layer 2. And speaking of that, ZeroX Mons here put out a tweet storm about the fact that they're building an ZK NFT, which is a marketplace for NFTs on ZK Sync. And they're saying that it's coming very, very soon. So again, you have all this stuff coming out in the next 3 months. Just like it's going to cause a huge boon in apps and users. I believe it's going to be like a renaissance where people just come back. And I've been talking about how I'm seeing this trend shifting where people are deploying to layer 2, like projects are deploying just to layer 2 and skipping layer 1 entirely. I don't know. Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself here. Maybe I'm getting like too excited about it. But I really do think and still believe that layer 2 is going to change the game for a lot of different things. And it's going to open the eyes of many, many doubters out there who thought that Ethereum couldn't scale. And it's also going to allow projects to do things we couldn't even dream of on layer 1 because of those obviously cheaper transactions and that faster throughput. The one thing I did want to mention about cheaper transactions though, and the one thing people may be getting a bit of a misconception about is the fact that they think that it's going to be that one layer 2 can service like all kind of users, and that's not true. Layer 2s have their limits. They're not unlimited scalability. They have their limits, and they're actually limited by, not only by, but they're being in large part limited by Ethereum's layer 1, and where they can kind of store their data on and things like that. Now, there are layer 2 technologies that are like Validity or Validium, I think it's called, that use kind of like off-chain data availability, but they come with security trade-offs at the end of the day. So there's going to be multiple layer 2s out there with bustling ecosystems. They're going to be limited by Ethereum's layer 1 throughput as well, or kind of like scaling on layer 1 there. So it's going to take time to get to where we want it to be. And I also think that with layer 2s, because the transactions are cheaper, there's going to be that block space is going to fill up pretty quickly. I mean, we saw it play out with Polygon, right? For example. Now, I got heat the other day because people said that I said Polygon was a layer 2. Their POS chain is not a layer 2, and I've never said that it's a layer 2. I've said before that it could be considered a side chain or a commit chain or whatever, but it is definitely not like something that most people would consider a layer 2. So I'm just going to use Polygon as an example as something that like has a lot more block space than Ethereum's layer 1, but got filled up very quickly. Because what ends up happening is that it's this concept of like induced demand, right? Like you've got like a highway that has 3 lanes and you say, okay, how can I fix the traffic on this highway? All right, I'll just add another lane. Well, if you add another lane, then more people start driving on that highway and then you get the same problem and you have to keep adding more and more lanes. So that's the same concept with scaling on Ethereum, where these layer 2s give you like a lot more lanes, like 100 times more lanes, but people, now that there is that capacity, people are just going to fill that up. And it's not even just people, it's bots. There's going to be a lot of bots filling up the space and the capacity on these layer 2s with arbitrage transactions especially. So when you have that kind of stuff happening, these layer 2s can actually reach their limit, right? And they can reach their limit a lot faster than people think they can. That's exactly what happened with Polygon's POS chain. It reached its limit, it started having full blocks, and the fees spike when that happens. So I just want to have some caution there. I don't expect it to happen kind of like too quickly on the layer 2s. And I do expect the experience to still be much better than layer 1 in terms of fees and speed of transactions. But generally, nothing has unlimited scalability. Absolutely nothing. And anyone claiming that something has unlimited scalability is lying to you, because even centralized things don't have unlimited scalability. The scalability is limited by the hardware and the for centralized solutions, it's mostly limited by hardware. For decentralized, from my understanding, it's limited by bandwidth, where you basically have to communicate across a global set of nodes, especially on like layer 1 blockchains, and agree on the current state of the chain, and not create all these kind of different forks and the chain stability going out the window sort of thing. So just a kind of like word of caution there, but that's not to say that NFTs, layer 2s are going to be revolutionary. It's just to say that I think people need to pause and think about the fact that these aren't infinite scalability solutions, and there will be multiple solutions. And I believe that even millions of transactions a second is not going to be enough one day. So there's going to be a multitude of different solutions with different trade-offs, with different security guarantees, and we're just going to have to see how it all plays out going forward. And I think this is going to be like a 5 to 10 year thing. This isn't going to be something we have an answer to, and it's not something that's going to work itself out within like 6 months. It's going to take longer than that, and I think a lot of it depends on just what developers deploy to and what users decide to use, but also what the bots do, because the bots rule this stuff, like the arbitrage bots, front running, MEV, all that sort of stuff. That happens on layer 2, is the same as it happens on layer 1. And there are a few different things you can do at layer 2 to minimize it. Like you can do MEV auctions, which is something that Optimism looked into. I don't know if that's going to be live from day one, but yeah, there's a lot of stuff happening there, a lot of research as well. But anyway, I'll leave it at that for now. I'll move on to I spoke about this last week, how the Alchemix had that incident with OLETH where people could basically withdraw ETH without paying back their all ETH, and then they were asking those users to return the funds. And so far, over half of the funds have been returned, which, I mean, I mentioned last week, this is just absolutely awesome. 1,200 ETH returned out of the 2262 that was owed. And, if you returned it, I think Scoopy was teasing that if you returned it, you're going to get an NFT, and then you're going to get like some other benefits for doing so or whatever. So it pays to be a good citizen here. But generally, yeah, I mean, I didn't even expect half of the funds to be returned. I expected maybe 10-20% of them, but it seems like the Alchemix community is very strong, very good-willed. So really, really cool to see that. So Kane from Synthetix put out a blog post called "An Old Dictator Appears." Now, this blog post is basically him saying that he realized that maybe mistake isn't the right word, but he realized that he made a kind of like I guess mistake in no, I don't think the mistake's the right word. I think he realized that by stepping away from Synthetix, he was able to kind of like get this Spartan Council set up, which manages all the day-to-day activities of the Synthetix ecosystem and the DAO, and decentralizes it out. But Kane also realized that he had been spending too much time outside of the Synthetix ecosystem, helping other projects out instead of focusing on the Synthetix product and being kind of like not an actual dictator, but like being a source of guidance and someone kind of to like soft lead the effort here. So this post is just a reflection on that. I highly suggest going and giving it a read. It's really, really great to get a kind of DeFi founder's perspective on this. But basically, the TLDR is that he'll be kind of, I guess, spending more time and being more active within the Synthetix ecosystem again. And I think he's better for it. I mean, it's funny because I often think about, is something decentralized if it has a leader? And I think yes. Just because something has a leader doesn't mean it's not decentralized. The meaning of decentralized is basically, okay, you have a leader, you have a lead, you have someone that people kind of like not blindly follow, but look to for guidance and look to for kind of like, I guess, a signal on like what's good, what's not, and kind of like getting advice from them and things like that. This is something that Vitalik does, I think, for the Ethereum ecosystem. He is an amazing leader, but he is not a dictator at all. He doesn't dictate what goes into Ethereum. He just gives ideas like everyone else can, and then the community can choose to adopt it or not. And the community can definitely say, no, Vitalik, we're not putting this in, and it won't go in. It's simple as that. If the majority of the community disagree with Vitalik, then it's not going into the protocol. Vitalik does not control the protocol. And that's the same thing, I think, with Synthetix, where if, Kane puts forward a proposal and says, we should do this, and everyone else is like, well, no, this is a stupid idea. Well, from as far as I know, Kane doesn't have any kind of like God mode over the protocol anymore. He can't put in whatever he wants. I think that's up to the council at this point. So there are different degrees of decentralization for these sorts of things. And I think the fact that you have someone that acts as like a leader or a lead figure in your app or anything doesn't really take away from decentralization. And I've discussed before how decentralization isn't just like, it is the people. It starts from the people, but it's also many other things out there. It's also like the economic nodes within the system, like the exchanges. It's also the infrastructure providers. It's the apps. It's the people running Ethereum full nodes, stuff like that. That back this all up. Similar things for the Synthetix ecosystem, right? There's the economic nodes, like the exchanges. There's infrastructure, Chainlink, Infura, all that sort of stuff. And there's also the core Synthetix community and the Spartan Council. So, there's people all along the chain there. And I think that if they were... And the funny thing is that because crypto's open source and because it's crypto so open, you can basically just leave if you don't like something that's happened. And if the majority of your community leaves because you put through something that was against the, I guess, like ethos of the community and it was a really bad idea, then your product dies anyway. So it's a lot of funky game theory that goes on with this stuff, but it actually works. But anyway, I highly suggest giving this blog post a read. It was a very good perspective from Kane. So Element Finance announced over the weekend that they're going to be deploying to the Ethereum mainnet on June 30th, which is in a couple of days from now, with initial support for LUSD, which is Liquidity Protocol's USD token, followed by DAI, USDC, ALUSD, ETH, and BTC thereafter. Now, there's this blog post of how you can participate in the launch and their rationale, why they supporting LUSD first. It's because it's a stablecoin with low volatility. It's got good APY, a vibrant community, and we honor their launch date of June 30th while they wait for the new DAI and USDC Yearn vaults. So just a refresher here, Element Finance is a fixed rate protocol which basically splits the yield-bearing token into its principal into a principal token and a yield token. So you can basically sell the yield as individual token and still keep your principal. So it's basically creating a market for fixed rate, kind of like lending and borrowing here. So I'm excited to see this go live. I've been following it for a while, hoping to get involved with it. Alpha Leak here, I'm going to assume that they're going to have a token just like every other app. So use it, right? Like if you want to get an airdrop, then all you have to do is use it. And I don't know if they're going to have a token or not. I don't have any special knowledge, but I'm going off my rule of if it exists and if it's a crypto project, it's going to have a token. So Jake Shavinsky gave us a little bit of an update on the I guess like some regulatory news here. So he says some big news in global crypto policy. The Financial Action Task Force was expected to finalize its quite bad draft guidance on AML regulation today, but today being June 26th, but instead will delay until October due to the volume of feedback they received. Thanks to everyone who wrote comments. This is a good start. So this was basically, I think a few months ago, there was some guidance put out by this task force that was really, really bad for crypto, and I think in particular for DeFi. And Jake was leading the charge on getting people to basically write comments to the FATF, which is the task force here, basically saying that it was bad regulation and that it should be reviewed and all this sort of stuff. So due to those comments, they've had to delay their kind of, I guess, finalization of this guidance till October to read through all the comments, read through all the feedback, which is positive, right? Like they actually do read our comments and our feedback, which is really, really cool. So I'm sure they have thousands of replies to read through, but I think that they definitely, hopefully, I'm hoping that they will kind of, I guess, amend this guidance, make it more friendly, because at the end of the day, the number one thing that can stifle a lot of this ecosystem and it slow its growth down considerably is if there's really bad regulations that choke the on-ramps to crypto. And really, all you have to do is choke the fiat on-ramps. To shut down most of the activity on Ethereum at this point in time, I actually think all you would have to do is basically say to the fiat on-ramps like Coinbase, no users can't withdraw from Coinbase to the Ethereum main chain, and you would shut off a lot of the activity on Ethereum. Now, that's not to say that you can regulate DeFi. You can't regulate what's happening on the Ethereum network or anything like that, but choking the on-ramps is definitely a risk, so we need to make sure that the regulators understand what they're kind of like regulating for starters, and we need to ensure that they don't put forward bad regulation, because as much as like I personally hate most financial regulations, I mean, hating it is one thing. Working to fix it and making sure that the powers that be don't kind of like mess up our nascent ecosystem before we have a chance to grow it and see where this goes is a really great idea. But generally, more and more regulation is going to come. I'm sure you've been seeing all the stuff with Binance getting barred from different countries and different exchanges being told to stop offering leverage products to retail investors. I'm on the fence about this. Binance is obviously playing with fire and has been for quite a while. They're definitely a regulatory target just generally. And I think that leverage in crypto, and I've discussed this many times before, is just really, really bad. Like, I don't want the government to have to regulate these things for people to actually kind of like learn their lesson and just like stop using this stuff. But in my eyes, there's no other way. Like, using leverage is akin to gambling, where, it's an addiction, right? It gets very addictive and people lose a lot of money by doing this. So I guess like the government's just basically saying, well, this is like toxic. We don't want people leveraging up on these instruments, especially doing leverage in crypto. I mean, leveraging stocks is one thing because they don't move as fast and there's like circuit breakers and all this kind of like regulation around it. But doing leverage in crypto, there is none of that. There is no circuit breaker. There is no there's nothing stopping an asset that you're leveraged up on dropping 50% in a day, and you get massive amounts of leverage as a brand new user with no experience in trading. So I get why the regulators are going after leverage, and I've been saying for a while that they will go after leverage and margin trading products and derivatives in general, like options as well is another thing that people can get wrecked on. But I'm not a fan that the government has to step in and do that. I wish that we could self-regulate better. I wish that people would listen to the people in this industry about leverage being like really risky and can potentially blow you up and make you lose a lot of money. But at the end of the day, people don't listen. They have to learn it for themselves, which is fine. Like I've been there myself before, not with leverage, but like I've learned like in the past, after making some bad trades a while ago that I shouldn't be trading. But I think the quickest way and the only way really that people are going to learn is if they blow themselves up. So yeah, we'll see what happens there. But generally, I expect the regulations to be ramping up over the next couple of years, definitely. And we're just going to make sure that they don't ramp up to the point where it chokes this industry. All right, last thing here. So I joined David Hoffman on the Bankless weekly roll-up last week, filling in for Ryan Sean Adams, who is currently vacationing. So if you haven't listened to this yet, I highly suggest you do so. It's about an hour and a half, 2 hours of me, basically, me and David, talking through the week that was within, I guess, Ethereum, crypto, all that sort of stuff. Had a lot of fun doing this. It'll be linked in the YouTube description below for you to go check out if you haven't yet. And on that note, I think that's it for today. So thank you everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give that video a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks everyone.